Welcome to Rauta's album reviews. This time we go Sweden with the name Korp. Korp really means raven. That's, I think, for Finnish word Korpi is taken from. There are a couple of bands with the same name. We'll tackle that thing in a little bit. But first, let's quickly unbox this CD. And yeah, this is pretty basic black, red, white design. Now, there's some curious thing I'm gonna mention about the genre and when we get that far, but like I said, first things first, let's give this packaging a go. As you can see, there's a shadowy figure inside a forest, whatever, a skull and raven, and this is what this on the other side. Grind to Death Records doing a nice job with the release, and then there is of course the cover again, and darker it shall become. Once again, there is this raven kind of creature, probably some kind of a witch background. Kind of takes me back to 90s. There's the lineup, 5 piece, recording information, lyrics, and of course more detailed images on the background. Very much the same as on the cover. So, all in all, seems like this is taking us to the 1990s black metal Swedish way. So if you go for Metal Archives and start typing Korp, you will see a Swedish black metal band and Swedish black thrash band. Now if you do like me and start thinking it's this one, no, it's the first one which did one album back in 2015, split up. So off we go to this black thrash metal act from Sweden as well, as early rather, called Korp from Bollnäs, Gävleborg. To be honest, I'm surprised that never heard of this band, even if it's that old, 30 years ago, even if they did some name changes and all that stuff. But the reason is probably here. They call it quits already 2009 after 3 albums, but came back some few years later, and now they have this new album out 2025 as Darker It Shall Become. So for the album, I was thinking this is a very, very new band, but no. And now talking about the genre, I totally don't get this black thrash metal feeling like at all with this thing. I mean, aesthetically, you could imagine it could be some kind of a black metal adjacent band or whatever, but musically different. But this, I guess, explains it. They were gone for 8 years or so. So previous album was taking place more than 20 years ago. I guess that explains a lot. Now, if you go for a members list, there is not very updated list. I mean, like when these musicians came to the band, past members of band, you know, they're also old and new. I mean, 2016 is relatively new still, but a couple of members from the 90s. But mostly it doesn't say anything about the current lineup, how long they have been in the band and all that stuff. So it's up for guesses, which probably tells a lot that we can speculate, you know, just quite safely that why this isn't black thrash anymore. It's actually melodic death metal. I mean, if you would ask me anyway. Now, the thing here is when I was listening to this thing is it sounds very, very Swedish, but not in the black thrash ways. If I had to say what sounds Swedish black thrash, I would go as far as to say, listen to first Bathory albums. I mean, nowadays standards, they probably would count as black thrash, even if it's just literally old school black metal. But I mean, the thrashiness is all over the place. So there are these bands which totally sound Swedish and black thrash at the same time, while this one, nothing like it. But things may change when lineup changes and years are changing and bands tend to split up along the career and all that stuff. What matters, however, is what we have here with 45 minutes and 10 tracks, which is pretty basic standard default setting. Now, released in September 5th by Grind to Death Records is very, very new, and that's why I wanted to have its own video rather than putting it Underground Trio, even if technically for the size and success, this could very much go into that department as well. Now, musically, like I said, this is more like melodic death metal. I get a lot of strong Amon Amarth vibes when listening to this one, but it's just smaller budget kind of a production, which is not a bad thing to say, it's just different. I mean, all the riffs are so Swedish sounding, it kind of takes me back to the 90s or early 2000s to say the least, but there is something that is kind of a timeless also. So cutting this kind of a release out in 2025 doesn't seem wrong or misplaced or doing a retro thing. It's just that sometimes production and songwriting is very, very timeless. Something that could have happened in the late 90s or as well as the 2020s. Musically, this is pretty basic standard, very easy to listen to, very easy to kind of enjoy it. But let's be honest about it, this doesn't have the hit songs Amon Amarth is known for. Now, obviously, it's not a band without its flaws, so there are albums which are not that great, which are kind of even recycled, rehashed versions of themselves, and that's where Korp comes into play. They don't have the luggage of the past, they don't have to deal with the legacy of dealing with the genre, so they feel like newcomers to the same game, but obviously from a less successful career, smaller label, and all that stuff. Now, why this is a pro thing is that they don't have this, background to compare their stuff to, which gives them more like this freedom, to express them whatever ways they want to. And as such, I think it's very liberating in a way, because this music is very, very easy to listen to, and like I said, very, very enjoyable to a degree. But what it does lack is, in my opinion, that so-called hit material. Because especially with melodic music, you're not just going with the chugging, palm muted riffs with brutal death metal and all. You're kind of gonna go with the melodies and look for some kind of a hooks, the addiction level. And that's unfortunately where Korp fails. Not badly, but just so that you can actually say it. But I feel like this band has a lot of potential, and I could imagine with these melodies and nice groove, the nice flow the songs have, and not being, extensive with the length and all, I could imagine these guys could, still pick it up and go for some bigger success. I could imagine these songs working very well live too. So what it's worth, I think this album is pretty good. I think it's definitely on the good side of things, being decent with songwriting, production, vocals, and all that stuff. But like I said, it just feels a little bit like this kind of a comeback album, which it is in reality. So more like reinventing themselves rather than going back to whatever they were doing back in the days. And of course, a new starting point is always a little bit hard, both for the listeners and the songwriters, the members. But yeah, give it a go. I think it's definitely worth a shot, because they do have some interesting things going on. So not really comparable, the biggest in the game in terms of their own subgenre, but definitely still worth giving a shot indeed. So what are you waiting for? There are links included in the description box. Go and hopefully enjoy. Bye bye.